Hello there, my name is Anna Lundberg. I'm the founder of One Step Outside, author of Leaving the Corporate 9 to 5, and host of the Reimagining Success podcast. We've been looking at why I believe running your own business is the best way to get the freedom, flexibility, and fulfillment in your life, and how you can go about setting up your business to give you those things. Last week, we started getting more specific in terms of tactics and strategies that you can use to really do that. And we looked at creating systems, where I was using systems to talk about processes and procedures, routines, tools, and so on that can help you automate and take off some of that really repetitive work from your plate to free up your time to work on the value-added parts of your business. This week, we're continuing in a similar vein because we're talking about outsourcing. Now, while outsourcing may take your mind to Bangalore call centres replacing local employees, it doesn't have to be like that. In simple terms, it really just means working with third-party suppliers. And in the context of running your own business, it probably looks like hiring a freelancer or using some kind of platform, perhaps a virtual assistant or a small agency to take certain tasks off your plate. Now, just as with systems, the benefit of this is that it frees up your time to do the value-added work, the work where you really are in your zone of genius, where you have the best skill set, the work that only you can and should do, and that you really enjoy doing. So it really helps in terms of the time, freedom, and flexibility, but also fulfillment, because it means you can work on the fun things that you actually enjoy doing, where you're creating a real impact. So in terms of when to start outsourcing, the answer is probably sooner rather than later, sooner than you think. A lot of you might think, oh, I'm just a freelancer, I'm just a solopreneur, I don't even want a team, I can't afford to get someone to do work for me, I have to do it myself. But just think of the time you would free up if you gave some small part of the business to someone else to do. They may be better at it than you, they'll certainly be quicker and most probably cheaper as well. I can't tell you how liberating it was when I started outsourcing some basic scheduling tasks a couple of years ago. Suddenly my week was free, and I realised that time that I thought I'd been working on really important things in the business, I'd actually been spending a lot of time just scheduling posts and doing some more kind of admin-y repetitive tasks that really weren't the right thing for me to be focusing on in terms of driving the business, looking at developing the business, talking to prospects, marketing, and so on, and actually doing the work. So it's a massive realisation for me at the time, and hopefully will be for you too. So again, I'd encourage you to consider outsourcing sooner rather than later. So a few ideas as to what you can outsource. In my case, I started with graphic design. Now I'm a creative person, but I'm more of a words person than I am a visual person. And as soon as it's something a bit more sophisticated, something I can't do or I don't have the software for and so on, and certainly that needs a bit of a creative expertise, then I'll outsource my graphics, whether it's, a pretty ebook or social media graphics, my logo, outsource that to an expert graphic designer. Now, you may be the opposite of me. You might be a very good designer and not so good with words, in which case you might consider outsourcing your copywriting or blog post writing and so on. Another big one that I discovered probably too late, but certainly it was better late than never, transcribing articles, interviews, and creating captions. So if you're creating video, which you probably should be doing if you're marketing your business, then it's really important to have captions when you're posting on LinkedIn, on Facebook, because if you're anything like me, when you're scrolling through your social feed, you don't have the sound on, you're probably on the bus or something on your commute, and you want to be able to read and have a look at the captions. So this is something you can actually auto-generate in some tools like YouTube, or you can pay someone to perfectly transcribe the video into captions. I also do a lot of interviews, my Fearless Fridays interviews with people who have left the corporate 9 to 5 to start up their own business. And initially, I was pretty fast at typing and I could transcribe them quickly, but I finally realised my time is better spent doing much more value added work. So I found a website that very cheaply transcribes and pretty high quality those interviews for me. So that's another area. Scheduling blog posts, emails, social media, I mentioned that of course. That's one of the key areas really, where you'll find plenty of virtual assistants and social media managers who will do that for you. So that's really important in terms of, you do the big strategy, you create the content, you go live, you might write the blog posts and videos and so on, but then someone else can execute your plans. That can be really effective as well. Another one is company accounts. Now, as much as it's important, I definitely recommend that you learn all about accounting and understand at least the basics, you stay on top of your financials. The reality is that things change all the time, and you really need an expert eye to make sure that you're not going to suddenly have a massive tax bill at the end of the year, or best case scenario, that you've sort of missed out on some important benefits that you could have taken. So an accountant can help you do the manual reporting, but also help you hopefully be as tax efficient as possible and make sure you don't get hit by any sort of unexpected fines or taxes at the end of the year. And then the final one for me is podcast episodes. So when I launched my podcast last December, I was putting it off, and I wanted to do it in 2018. And so I sort of threw money at the problem, and I found an expert agency who could do the editing for me. The technical threshold barrier for me was big, and I just didn't know quite how to do it. So I thought, okay, I'll get someone else to do it. Now, I am looking at bringing at least the basic editing of episodes in-house now, because it is quite simple in my case. But whether you're doing podcast editing or starting out, or maybe video editing, these are things that require a certain type of software and expertise if you want it to come out with a professional quality. So those are just a few examples of things you can outsource. Obviously, depends on your business, and I would really encourage you to ask yourself, number one, what do you hate doing? That's probably a prime prospect to hand over to someone else if possible. And what don't you have time to do? So something at the moment that you really do need to do for the business, but you just don't have time to do. And then what don't you have the skills or software or equipment to do? So if you're not good at something, then probably, again, you can find someone who will do it generally better, faster and cheaper. So please have a think about what you can outsource in your business. Start with something basic, a platform like Fiverr, for example. I have a favourite graphic designer there who's fantastic. She does all my ongoing projects for me, both for my client programs, membership sites, resources and so on, and then a lot of my social things as well. And she literally does just charge $5 for each particular element. So this is a fantastic platform to use when you're just getting started, or you can get more sophisticated hiring sort of proper freelancers, building a team and so on. But have a think about that. If you have no idea where to start, if you've never outsourced, you've never really thought about it and you're not sure how to go about it, I'd love to invite you for a chat with me where we can look at where you are in the business, what might be some prime areas in the business to outsource, and then how you can start by doing that. So you can book that free consultation with me at onestepoutside.com/free consultation. That's onestepoutside.com/free consultation. I look forward to chatting with you, hearing about what you're going to be outsourcing, and I will see you next week. Bye for now.